Today we have to discuss about block diagram of a drive. Already I said the previous classes what is meant by drive. Drive is nothing but a group of elements or a lot of components in a group form. That group form or connection of group is controlled by one single element, that is called drive. Again I have to say, drive in the sense a group of components or lot of components are connected each other for a single work or single work output by controlling a particular element, that is called drive. Then followed by the drive system, we have to switch on electric drive. Electric drive in the sense any kind of electrical equipment to use for controlling the group of element, which is called electric drive. Specifically the electric drive in the sense the group of elements can have to working some function, electrical function, that group elements controlled by one single electrical equipment or electrical element, which is called electrical drive. So do you know the difference between drive and electric drive? I already explained many times, but now I have to say again. So we must know about what is meant by drive, what is meant by electric drive. Drive is nothing but a group of elements connected in a single form. That form, which is controlled by a single element, is called a drive. Electric drive means a group of electrical components and committed for one electrical work. That group of electrical component controlled by a single electrical equipment, which is called electrical drive. So those two words represents the entire 5 units of this subject, because this drive is very essential for electrical, not only electrical, among all of the department, among all of the technical issues, we must follow the control equipment. That control equipment only lead their technology to smoothly without any drawback. So we must follow the drive system for each and every technology. Then we have to move on black diagram of a drive. It is a black diagram. This black diagram contains many electrical parts. Already I said electrical drive in the sense number of electric equipment or number of electrical components combined one form for any kind of electrical work. That form controlled by any one electrical equipment. That electrical equipment which is called electrical drive, already I said. Okay. This is black diagram of a drive system. This black diagram of drive system consists of many components connected each other. That components are power processing unit, motor, sensor, controller. Then initially electric source were to be connected across the power processing unit. So electrical sources input, whether it is DC or AC, that power feed to the power processing unit. Am I right? That power processing unit gather the electrical input from electric source. Then the power processing unit can have to work their representation. Finally, just give a proper output to the particular motor, whether the power processing unit having produced of AC, the motor will be AC. Otherwise the power processing unit is DC, the motor will be DC. Okay, so don't confusing of this. Okay, the motor always depends upon what kind of power having in power processing unit. So don't mind apart from those two blocks. Okay, next we have to move the load process. Finally the motor output will have to feed across the load. This is a simple electrical drive block diagram. Then we have to initiate some of drive system. So specifically we know what is meant by drive. This drive fed in electrical component that is called electrical drive. Already I told to you all. Now we can see this electrical source, power processing unit, motors, load. Four things are mentioned by electrical system. Those four blocks are especially work done by electrical work. Okay, that functions can have to fixed or allocated for electrical work. Among those blocks, we have to feed one kind of drive system for controlling their electrical element or electrical work. That electrical controlling work called electrical drive. That electrical drive specifically fixed into various blocks. That blocks are sensors and controllers. Okay, under the motor we had been connected one sensor towards of controller, then towards of power processing unit. This is electrical drive capability of blocks. Okay, none other than these two blocks. We have to consider whole system, whole black diagram system is called electrical drive black diagram. So now just to move with this black diagram. Okay, first I just introduce electrical source, that is utility or power source, or whether source, current source or voltage sources. So any name which is called for this source of electric. So simply I have to say electric source. Electric source having two kind of sources. One is AC sources, another one is DC sources. These two kind of sources always depends upon the output of power. Okay, whether this source be a AC, the load is a AC load. Whether the source be a DC, the load is DC. So the source always being or depending the load sources. Load needs, okay, not load sources. Load needs. Now I took the example of AC sources of here. This AC sources feed to power processing unit. This power processing unit is nothing but it contains some advanced solid state switches. That solid state switches are already you all are read in a power electronics subject. That solid state switches are IGBT, MOSFET, SCR, GTO. Like the switches are power electronic switches. Another name of this power electronic switches are solid state switches. Okay, okay, not in mind. Especially three switches are capable for the various applications. That switches are SCR, IGBT, MOSFET. Okay, so SCR is a medium power application. SCR can have to use for medium power application and high power application. IGBT, then MOSFET, both switches are can applicable for medium power and high power applications. So these three switches are mainly used for solid state or power electronics applications. Here we are see the solid state drives applications. So the load are capable for high power efficient one. We just using SCR and IGBT and MOSFET. Okay, those three switches are only applicable for here for drive combinations. Okay, power processing unit. I'm saying power processing unit especially used for high power applications. So here I used SCR switches for power processing unit to controlling their unnecessary work. Okay, we can expect a perfect output, we must follow a controlled switch of ACS. Okay, then this power processing unit uh, can have to functionate depends upon the expectation of load. Finally, it just give a proper output of here that proper output which is given to the motor system. This motor received their power processing unit output as the input, and it just acts as a relevant communication of motor. Finally, it just give a proper output to the load. If the motor gave a improper output under the sensor sensing sequentially of motor working condition, and if the motor output is improper, the sensor can carry their motor output to feed a controller. The controller can have two different kind of inputs. One is sensor input, another one is reference input. So if the sensor input is under the expectation output of load or over the expectation output of load, whether both the condition are wrong, so we just meet out the equal output of load. So we can manage that equal output of motor by using this reference input. So the controller can compare the sensor output and reference input of controller, both the input compared by controller, and give a proper input to power processing unit. The power processing unit can receive the power from power source and output of controller, correct controlled output from the controller. Both the input and controlled output can have to processing their limitations and to give a proper output to motor, and finally the motor working their relevant work for produce a proper output. Finally the motor produce a proper output to load, so load attain a good condition of output as an input. So this is electrical drive combination system. So this says block diagram of electrical drive system.